wondering, how did you land this current job that you're at, after what you were doing previously? Was that a conscious decision?
Yeah, so I mean, I worked in other capacities in the development sector previously. So, I
Hmm.
started off my career working with a foundation, and there I was basically managing, programs, funding programs which were implemented by NGOs or by social enterprises, again in very similar sorts of sectors, with a focus on, improving the lives of people living in urban poverty in various cities across India. So that's where I started off with. Then I went on to work with a grassroots NGO, which was working in tuberculosis control, again in urban slum areas. So again targeted at people living in urban poverty. And then in all these programs, the government was always a very big partner, or you always had to collaborate with the government in some way, because I think again it's the nature of these sectors. Health, especially public health, is actually the biggest mandate of government. Any government around the world. Areas like health, education, nutrition, governments do have a very big role to play, because markets often fail in many of these areas. That's the very nature of how they are, and so governments have a very, very big responsibility and a very big role to play. So that is what I was always clear about, that it depends on what stage I get to it. And I actually thought that by working in other organizations, getting more grassroots experience, actually made me better positioned to then come into a policy making role, because policy making is a very, very complex space. And I feel that unless you really appreciate the nuances of what goes on the ground, what different stakeholders feel, and you appreciate the challenges of implementing something in a real world setting. Because in our academics, in our education, we often learn about the perfect scenario. This is how ideally things should be. But policy making teaches you that things are rarely ideal. The real world is far from ideal. It's full of challenges, full of complexities. And yet how do you push forward a certain agenda that you believe is truly good and truly impactful? So I think that comes with a certain amount of experience, it comes with a certain amount of maturity, it comes with a certain amount of interaction with a wide range of stakeholders. And also it brings you humility to know what you can and what you cannot do, and in what sort of time frame. Because sometimes when you're very, very idealistic, you just think, okay, I should just be able to do everything. Why is it taking so much time, or why is it so hard to do? And I think you learn that humility over the years of working in this sector, that sometimes you genuinely have to be patient, you have to find creative ways to work around very, very intractable kind of problems. These are problems that people before you have probably spent their entire lifetime trying to tackle, so they are not easy problems to tackle. And so you also have to have that little bit of humility also when you approach these. So I think having had these kinds of experiences, I then felt that I would be in a better position to, work within the government system, work within the policy making situation, because I would have a better appreciation of, while I know what I want to ideally do, I would also have a better sense of, how things might actually pan out in the real world, and, how I can make things happen. So I think it was a conscious decision to that extent, that I do want to
Hmm.
eventually work within the government system, and within the policy making system, because as I said, the government is the biggest stakeholder in the sectors that I work in. So that is the view with which I wasn't, it wasn't like I have to come to Niti Aayog, or I could have worked in another type of institution also. It's just that Niti Aayog does give a lot of opportunities to people who are domain experts, and they constantly recruit for such kind of people. So I got the opportunity here, and then over time it worked out well for me.
Right. Yeah, since you mentioned, working, having that experience of working at different organizations and understanding the grassroots reality of things, and then coming to Niti Aayog, which is obviously, more like a top-down perspective on like, very high level thinking on how these things can be structurally changed. Um, So I worked at a public health nonprofit a couple of years ago, and
Yeah.
one of the things that I saw a lot of people talking about. So this was a firm based out of Boston, and they were doing work in pretty much multiple parts of the world. But the consulting sort of thing was done out of the office in Boston. And one of the things that came up quite often was really being able to assess the impact of the kind of work they were doing and getting that feedback as well. Because after this nonprofit was doing their job, it was really hard for them to even understand what they were doing was making the kind of difference that they were hoping to be able to make changes to their work too. So having had both kinds of experiences in your life, like what's your perspective on that? Is it something that is still a struggle for organizations that work at the upper level?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously very complex in this kind of a context.
Mhm.
Again, like I was talking about India, and the federal structure and states versus center. So to really know whether something is working or not is obviously a much more complex exercise, because it's not enough to just look at the government data itself. And that's why I was saying
Mhm.
that we try to look at a whole lot of other sources of information and data. But I think overall, if you really want to get a very realistic assessment of how well you're being able to do on a particular program or a particular policy, that would need a fixing of the entire data system. And that's of course something that NITI Aayog is also involved with. And we're also trying to work on that how do you integrate all the different data sources, because right now we have a lot of different data systems but they don't talk to each other necessarily. So how do you integrate that? How do you make the quality of data better? But I think it's most important that all the stakeholders, right from top to bottom, understand what is the value of doing something like this. And I think that is equally important, because a lot of the times, when you see programs being implemented at the grassroots level and there's a health worker or somebody else who has to input certain data, a lot of the times they're not even sure themselves that, why exactly are we doing this, or what is it going to be used for? How is it going to benefit us? How is it going to benefit the program? So I think this understanding, often we just talk of these
Mm.
things in terms of technology or IT systems, but a lot of it is human behavior and human, understanding of what you think something really helps with. And I think that is equally important. And that is where a large part of the struggle is, because for a lot of people, it's not completely clear how the feedback loops work. What are they being used for? Where do they end up? Do they really change anything or not? So I think those are also the kinds of things that need to be addressed, before you can get a very sort of accurate answer to this question of, whether it's working or it's not working. But in the absence of that, of course, you keep doing, the kinds of things that I was mentioning earlier. You do try to, keep assessing as much as you can. What is your impact? What is your, sort of effectiveness in the real world of anything that you're doing? But I think to make it much better and to make it much sharper, you need to address these sort of fundamental issues. So I think that's the direction that we need to go towards, and at least some steps are being taken. But again, as I said, with the kind of scale we have here, it's not about one institution or one set of people, or just one government. It has to be a very, very collaborative effort across the country. So I think that's going to take a lot
Mhm.
of time, obviously, sort of get to that ideal scenario.
Right, absolutely. I have a ton of questions, just pertaining to your current position, but like I want to get into the other things that you've done as well. But really quickly, if you were to be talking to someone who's interested in working in public health or just, public policy in general, some sort of like development work, what would your recommendations be? Are these, positions at such organizations really specific to really deep knowledge in the subject, or could like an entry level person start off a career in these organizations?
No, I think there's opportunities available at different levels. So
Mhm.
even for a relatively, entry level person, somebody maybe who's just done their masters, has maybe a couple of years of work experience. So even people, I mean, the specific requirements obviously vary.
Mhm.
and that is advertised and put out on the website, etc. But there are roles for entry level people as well. So I think at that stage, if you want to like get sort of a very sort of high level overview, you just want to like do a little bit of research into some of these areas, get some sort of exposure, then I think those positions could be interesting for somebody like that. But I think then eventually there's also positions progressively for people who have much deeper experience and domain knowledge. And so I think Niti Aayog, of course, has a lot of these positions, and that's why I said it becomes often a very obvious choice for somebody who's wanting to work in the government and yet is coming in from the outside, is not a civil servant or a bureaucrat. But there's also positions that a lot of state governments advertise, and
Mhm.
I think some of those could be very interesting also, because state governments, as I said, in India are really the ones who are on the ground, and they are the ones who are really sort of implementing the programs. And so if you do want a much sort of a closer experience to a program on the ground and what really goes on, and what are the kinds of challenges and you know opportunities there, then I think you should, it's also worth looking at state government positions. And these are also often advertised like publicly, and you can apply, and the process is usually quite open and transparent. So I think,
Mhm.
and there's also like government think tanks, other types of government think tanks as well, which might be more focused on either financing, there's public financing, or certain other types of areas that people might be interested in. That's my expectation, that there will be more and more roles for people who want to come in as professionals, or who want to come in as sectoral domain experts, as opposed to people who want to like necessarily stay in the government or make a career of it for their lifetimes. I think there'll be much more flexibility for people to come in, work for a few years, go out, maybe do something else, maybe come back to the government at a more senior position or at a different
Mhm.
position. So I think that's generally going to be the direction in which things will go.
And keeping in mind that we have last like 10 minutes left for this, I kind of wanted to switch gears towards your early life and your childhood. You obviously did your bachelor's, master's, and MPhil in the UK, and I think you worked there for a few years as well. So I was wondering, what were your early years like? Did you always know you wanted to work in the development sector? How did you figure that out? And also really quickly, what made you come back to India after living in the UK for so many years?
Yeah, so I did my schooling, of course, mostly in India. I did spend a year in Vienna, in Austria, but apart from that, most of my schooling was in India. And when I was at school, I used to really like studying biology, and I think that was mostly because we had the best teacher for biology. It just goes to show that teachers really have a very big role to play in shaping your interests and shaping your path. And so it's a subject I just took to very, very naturally, and I found it really fascinating. So that is why I thought I do want to study it in a much more deeper level, because at that time when I was finishing school in India, most of the undergrad options we had were like pure biology. So you could either do zoology or you could do botany. I actually wanted to do life sciences. I wanted to go like much broader and also much deeper into like different areas. So then I decided to go to the UK, because the UK did have, even at that time, very cutting edge sort of education and research in these fields. So I did life sciences. I actually specialized in genetics in my undergrad, and a lot of people say, well, you don't really use genetics very much now. And I said, it's not about really using it necessarily in your everyday work, but I have that understanding, I have that appreciation. And I think genetics is a fascinating field, and again, genetics of viruses is something that could be so relevant. Now we're talking of pandemics and viruses, and how viral behavior actually is. That's a fascinating field in itself. So I think I mean, in the UK, I really got this, very broad exposure to the field of life sciences, healthcare. But it was always very clear that I wanted to apply this to, really
Mm.
improve people's lives in a very, very tangible sense. So, one route I could have taken was to go down the more scientific route. I could have, gone down the sort of laboratory research and science. And the other is to actually work in healthcare, in public health, in health related programs, policies. And that's the route that I, thought that, I would like to take, because, I would be able to very directly, very quickly, very tangibly, be able to see that impact in front of my eyes. And so I think that was very clear for me. And when you talk of healthcare, this is to your question that, what brought you back here. And I think growing up, you see a lot of inequity, and as I grow up in India, and I see that even today, and that inequity, I would say, has always been the biggest driver for me. That why is it that some of us don't need to even think twice, before going to a doctor or before going to a hospital? We can have the best of services at our disposal. Whereas there is so many people out there who cannot even get access to some of the most basic services, the most basic life-saving interventions. So I think the inequity is really acute. And I think in a country like India, which is so large, which got so much diversity, that inequity hits you even stronger. So I think I was always therefore very clear that I do want to bring this sort of world-class education skills and also networks. I think a big part of my UK education was my networks, my
Mhm.
classmates, many of whom I'm still in touch with. I think I wanted to bring all of that back to India, and see what can I do here to make at least a small impact. As I said, that it's not that I think, or I'm arrogant enough to think I can change the whole landscape or I can address all of healthcare inequity in India. I mean, obviously not, but to be able to make even a small dent, in this vast sort of ocean of problems. But I think I was always very clear that the inequity, in my own country is really what I want to make some amount of a difference to. And that's why I chose to come back here.
Yeah, yeah, that's a beautiful answer. It's definitely a super noble intention that not a lot of us have, because again, it comes back to the lifestyle and the money you make and all those kinds of things. So that's definitely beautiful and amazing. I kind of wanted to switch gears and talk about, the kinds of things you've involved with the World Health Organizations, and also the World Economic Forum to a certain degree. What has your experience been like, and do you see, a very clear difference between how these really humongous organizations function as opposed to how things work at the government level? Anything that stands out?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think the bigger the organization, obviously there's a lot of bureaucracy there, and that is very similar to how governments also operate. I think any large organization, any very large
Mhm.
organization has its own, bureaucracy, and you can sometimes get stuck in those systems and procedures and all those kinds of things. So, but yes, there is a lot of inherent bureaucracy. Sometimes slowness, that I was referring to in the beginning. Things can just seem to move a little slower than what you might like, and the pace at which you might like to move. But I think they have their own benefits. I think the World Economic Forum, for instance, I've been part of their communities purely on a volunteering sort of basis, and part of a lot of the volunteering projects. In the case of WEF, I have done mostly projects which are gender related, and because that's also a personal passion of mine. Apart from an area that I work on, I also feel very strongly about making sure girls have equal access to education. They have access to a safe environment. So I have worked on some of those projects in purely a voluntary capacity, and I think they have a certain convening power. These organizations, they're able to bring a lot of different kinds of stakeholders to the same table, to the same platform. So you get to build your networks. You get to interact again with a very wide range of stakeholders, both national as well as international. So I think that for me, the organizations like these, I think that's the biggest advantage, that they bring, or the biggest plus. And if you can find, a way to, still carve out something meaningful and tangible for yourself, while being, in this sort of large setup. And I think it can be that happy balance between, being in a large organization and yet not feeling lost, or, not feeling that I'm not really being able to contribute tangibly, or I don't see my tangible contribution. So I think that is how I look at it.
Yeah, and you mentioned a little bit earlier that studying in the UK gave you the opportunity to find network and find people that were interested in similar things or had worked in certain fields. I'm just curious, working at these really big name organizations, do you need to have a network, or how did you get your opportunities? Right? Was it through just you saw a job online and you applied for it, or was it through people? Yeah, how does that look like from if someone from outside wants to know?
Yeah, I mean, I think in these organizations, knowing people is certainly very helpful. I think there's no
Mhm.
doubt about that. Uh, I mean, for me, it's been a mix of both. I mean, a lot of things I've just applied for, and somebody happened to call me, interview me, and then it went forward. But over time, of course, then my networks have helped me with this, right? So people I know who are working at certain places, or like who can at least just make sure that my profile or my work, at least it can get noticed, by the right people there. So I think that is definitely useful, but I think you build up these networks and contacts over time. So I think that's of course a very ongoing thing, that you will keep trying to build these relationships, these networks, but it should never stop you from like, just you should still, I've just cold called a lot of people. I've reached out to a lot of people. If I've really felt I want to try something, I've gone ahead and done it. And I think that's fine. At most you'll fail. That's okay. You'll get another opportunity. Something else will come your way.
Right. Yeah. Just like how we called, reached out to you for this podcast. Really weren't expecting for you to get back, but that happened. I'm really glad about that. To be cognizant of time, I know we are like over a couple of minutes. So really quickly, I just wanted like to ask you if you have any book recommendations or just generally learning resources for someone interested in public health or even just public policy in general.
Yeah, I mean, I just read like a lot of the current, opinion pieces. I would
Mhm.
say that more than books, because books can sometimes be, a little bit, you really have to set aside a certain amount of time, and you have to also feel interested in that topic to that depth, and that's not
Right.
necessarily always for everybody. So I would certainly recommend, especially in policy, to read like the opinion pieces that come out, in the national newspapers, or internationally if you're so inclined. There's a lot of people who regularly publish columns, write pieces, on a whole host of subjects. And I would really not like limit myself to reading one or the other. I tend to read all of these, because again,
Mhm.
I might agree, I might disagree, but it gives me very much needed perspective on any issue, because I think that's the only way to learn and to grow. So I would really advocate for like reading opinion pieces by these could be leading economists, these could be academicians, these could be people working in the private sector. A lot of people have started writing and expressing their views in just the mass media, especially when you talk of public policy or areas like this. Get a broad perspective of like what are the kind of views out there, and what are people thinking, and what is the opinion right now out there, what is the kind of general discourse,
Mhm.
rather than thinking of it very academically, or very sort of I
Right.
would say very practically. Um, i would i would say that this is a good approach to take.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much for taking your time, Urvashi. And I had a ton of other questions specific to the field as well, which we couldn't get to. So I'm hoping we could do, a part two and dive deeper into public
Sure.
health only. But thank you so much for taking time for this. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.